Hello, teachers. Welcome back to Teachers Help Teachers. I'm your host, Esther Yun, and it's that time of year again where we're wrapping up another school year, but under quarantine. And we still need to get a few things done, though, right? Regardless of our circumstance. One of them being reorganization. This episode is specifically for teachers who need to help out with reorganizing next year's classrooms. It could also be an episode for teachers or counselors who need to collaborate with others to set up classes for next year. So if that's you, I hope this episode is helpful to you where you can still do your job with helping out with reorganization, but in a safe way. Typically, teachers get together in a room where we're shuffling cards with student info on it and literally placing those cards on tables that represent next year's class, and that's just not feasible, right? So after thinking about some possibilities of doing this reorganization with my colleagues, I reached out to a colleague of mine, Erica Lundy. You might remember her from a previous episode. She gave me a terrific idea that she has something that she's used in the past, and I want to share it with you today. My colleagues and I, we tried this method and we loved it. We thought it was such a safe, efficient way, painless way to get our reorg done. So let's get started. There are a couple of things you need to do this. You need Google Sheet and you need Zoom to get this job done. So first, you want to appoint one person to set up the Google Sheet that everybody is going to share and use. So let me show you what I mean. And I took the liberty of doing that myself for my group after texting them that this was an idea, let's try it, and they were on board to try it. And you'll see, put a title on it on top. Reorg. I'm doing this specifically for this episode. So I put Teachers Help Teachers right there, but call it whatever you want. Again, this is the setup. One person would set this up for the team. And the thing that you're going to need is our two columns for each class. So you have class 1, which is a ELD cluster in this case. You can put the teacher's name there. It's strongly suggested, it helps. Class 2, columns here for boys and girls. Class 3, columns for boys and girls. Class 4, columns for boys and girls. So you want to create the label, this label right here, okay? You want to create the label boys and girls right here. And then you want to develop a key. Any pertinent information that that you need to do your reorganization thoroughly, you want all that at the bottom. And so the key just communicates what colors we're going to use for certain data. So for example, in elementary, we use something called dibbles, where it signifies where they are on their foundational skills, reading skills. So we have blue for beyond benchmark, green for benchmark. yellow, a mustard yellow for strategic, and red for far below. A mustard yellow is highly suggested because look what happens when I try to use a true yellow. So I'll go over here where my text toolbar is, and you can barely see it, right? So let's use a mustard yellow for that data. And I use these colors because Dibble's data is color coded that way. So just for consistency's sake, that's why I picked those colors. IEPs, you want to, it's important rather to identify who your students are with IEPs. If your team decides to cluster them or scatter them, what have you, you have that key for IEP students with IEPs. And then you have your ELD cluster, right? For next year's rising second graders, our school decided, our second grade team decided that they would all be under one class. So because every student has a Dibble's score, an ELD student, you know, how do we signify that it is that student is an ELD student? Well, this key where we underline, right? And then you might have a gifted cluster if you're third grade and beyond. You might have a gifted cluster because they have that ID. Although next year they might not have that that classification, right? Because if the OLSAT wasn't handed in on time for that data to be generated, you might not even have that data. So just keep that in mind as well. So this is the setup. You want this bottom part set up before, and the title, before you share your document with the others. Now, when you share your document with your colleagues, you want to make sure that on that email, their email that you're sharing, okay, the email that you're using to share, it has that label editors so that they can edit and plug in on this one single sheet, right? So that's how you share. And what I would suggest is before you come together as a team on Zoom to finalize this reorg, I would plug in the students. My team and I did that too. Plug in the students before your Zoom meeting so that, and you know, color coded, of course, and put all the codes in so that you can, when you Zoom together, you can see where everybody is and where everything lies, so that when you do Zoom, you can make final revisions, final changes, and so that meeting goes faster, it's more efficient, and whatnot. So this is an example of a typical class, right? That teachers and my colleagues plugged in before the Zoom meeting, okay? And then we had a discussion of, imbalance, right? One class didn't have that balance of boys-girls ratio, so you make that revision during that Zoom. So let me just show you how to color code with this student right here because it was left dark it was left black without a color code. So let's give her that, that identification of that mustard yellow for strategic. Okay. Notice how the ELD clusters, all the students who are ELD students are underlined with their appropriate DIBBLE score or DIBBLE result, color result. Notice how we have our gifted cluster ID identified with percentage marks right there. Notice IEPs, right? We have an asterisk there. We have an asterisk there. Yeah, so, and any other data that you want to insert, go ahead and do that. It's just, I would use, I wouldn't use colors at this point for the other data to ID each student, only because you're already using color right here for DIBBLE's data in this case, right? All right. Let's see. So I told you about sharing, making everybody an editor. I told you about before the Zoom appointment between you and your colleagues, plug in all the students in the appropriate classes so that when you do Zoom, you're moving things, shifting things easily during that meeting. Also during Zoom, appoint one person to share that Google Sheet so that everybody can see it on the screen. And you can just say, oh, can you move this student over to that class? Oh, I changed my mind about this student with that teacher, move them over. So that way one person is sharing and shifting as colleagues are talking about their final decisions for next year's class. So, and then after you're done with that, if that is your final roster for reorg, if that's your rosters, right, for reorg, then share that with your administrator, right? Put their email in there. You can make them editors if you want. You can make them just viewers so that they have a copy of it. And there you go. And then they'll take it from there and do what they need to do on their part to make sure that every student is assigned correctly, efficiently to the next teacher. So that's reorganization using Google Sheet and Zoom. And I hope you find it helpful and useful. If principals like it, please share this video to communicate how to use Google Sheet and Zoom to reorg. If you want to just use this suggestion as a place to just do the work, right? But your administrator might have different protocols of, no, I want my reorg done this way. Well, at least the work then is done this way, safely, efficiently, and then you can just move that information to wherever or whatever your principal wants for the reorg, right? So, okay, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again on Teachers Help Teachers. Bye.